This is Sports Inside and Out. Legends of Sports, the voice of Legends of Sports. When legends speak, people listen. Now, here's your host, the coach, Chuck Hatcher.
Sports fans, it's that time again. This is Sports Inside and Out, Legends of Sports. I'm your host, executive producer, Coach Hatcher, and listen, we're powered by YardStream, and we're sponsored this particular StreamYard, and of course, StreamYard, I should say. And don't forget, we got CIAA Sportsbook.com is our sponsor for this particular segment, and we got one ready for you today. It's a Philadelphia Hall of Fame thing day. And we got one of the greatest of all time right here with us, and we got the Charlie Neal. That's right, the Charlie Neal segment on this one, along with the Wally Wonder Man. And we got something that I know you're going to love because all of these guys, including Charlie, Hall of Fame, and all of them from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love. I want to get off right now because this one you're going to really, really enjoy. This is very, very much the news that you can use, and I got to turn it over now to Charlie Neal. Hey, Charlie, welcome on.
Well, thank you so much, Coach. It's always a
We
pleasure
missed
to
you,
be.
baby. You've been all over the place.
Yes, indeed. It's always a pleasure to be here with you on Sports Inside and Out, Legends of Sports. And when you talk about legends, we have one today, both as a player and as a coach. And as you said, he's from my hometown, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Played as high school ball at West Philly High School, none other than John Raymond Scott. John Raymond, how are you?
I'm good.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time, and it's great seeing you. We're gonna go back in history. We're gonna go back in time. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, West Philly High School, championship high school basketball. Played against a guy like Herb Adderley, right?
Herb. Actually, we beat Herb's team for the Public League Championship. I got to get my recall going here, Charlie. I just hit my 84th year.
That's
so
okay.
If it goes a little slow, bear with me.
It's all right.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to come along in that Wilt Chamberlain era because that was an important era in high school basketball because Wilton Norman Chamberlain made high school basketball not only in Philadelphia but nationwide. He actually put us on the front pages, as you know, with the Bulletin, with the Enquirer, the Daily News, and then our African-American papers, our Tribune, our Independent, our Pittsburgh Courier. So Wilt was the guy that really led that drive and really brought that interest to America, in my opinion. And I think it bears out when you get into researching the information as I did. I just wrote a book, Charlie, in the past 2 years called The NBA in Black and White, and it includes a lot of stuff about Philadelphia and how we grew up. And again, the guy you mentioned, who I considered personally to be the greatest athlete to come out of Philadelphia, other than Wilt, was Herb Adderley. Because Herb was a great all-city basketball player, all-city football player, and he's one of the greatest
defensive backs. Yeah.
Backs in the history of the NBA. So
NFL.
I said NBA.
Yes, okay. I understand.
Just to bear with me, because I'm thinking, I'm trying to do that parallel thinking in how I wrote my book in terms of our United States civilization and our United States Professional League, which was the NBA, the National Basketball Association. And so all of that comes into play in our system, in our research, because we were denied entry for so long. So there's a story there And how does the NBA get to be the NBA? And the other story is, how is the United States getting to be the United States as we're observing them? So it's I hope it has interest. I hope people find value in it. I certainly love it. I read excerpts at night after writing it. So
Well, you
it's
know what we're going to do today is, as we talk, we're going to touch on some things that I'm sure you have included in your book. But the first thing I want to ask you, a lot of people, we talk John Raymond Scott, but most people call you Chink.
that's correct.
Where does the Chink come from? Where did that nickname come from?
Well, I was a South Philly kid, and as you know, South Philly and North Philly are famous for giving people nicknames.
Mhm.
Uh, Nicknames that they don't fully appreciate sometimes. I mean, like I said, I've grown up with kids named Meatball. I've grown up with kids named the Monster. I've grown up with kids named Pickles. I mean, those names are not complimentary, and they're not meant to be. That's the neighborhood. Uh, uh, that's kind of the way you officially grow up in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so in fact, I talk to my family about it all the time, about how you get these nicknames. And it's interesting because it comes from a group of people that decide what your nickname is. Now, I have asked people in a friendly way to drop that nomenclature, because I feel that it's impolite, and it insults a group of people that we love and we endorse and we embrace in the
Mhm.
United States. So I've asked that they not use it any longer and just call me Ray. I mean, I was Ray Scott, but at West Philly, I was actually Ray Chink Scott. Uh,
Mhm.
so it's like Wilt being named the Dipper. People really don't know his nickname as we
Right,
do.
right,
We know he
right,
was Dip.
right.
But when he became a superstar, he was Wilt the Stilt and all of that other
Sure.
stuff. Uh, our embrace was the nickname that he was given in the neighborhood. So it's kind of a long-winded way of talking about uh, nicknames, but
Right.
they're a big part of our culture.
Tell me about now. First of all, you wind up going to college 3,000 miles away. How did you wind up all the way across country in the Pacific Northwest at Portland?
Because he recruited me. I came out of West Philly High, and we had 5 universities, in our
Sure.
circle of
The Big
influence.
Five. Sure.
Exactly. What is it? LaSalle, Villanova, St.
Drexel, St.
And
Joe's.
then Drexel was kind of a school that had an embrace for Philly kids. But
Yes.
at the time that I came out of school in the Wilt era, they were not recruiting us. Remember,
Okay.
Wilt Chamberlain went to Kansas.
Sure.
Go to a Philadelphia school. So when Wilt went to Kansas, he wasn't recruited. I didn't find anything unusual about not being recruited by the Big Five schools. And I went to school in New York. I went to Brooklyn first, excuse me, and I went from Brooklyn, and the coach from the University of Portland called and said, "Hey, I coach at a school that's affiliated with Notre Dame." And I said, "Oh, that's good. I'd gone to Catholic school, and I had that piece in me where I wanted to get back to that level of education in Catholic school." So he called and said the University of Portland's a Catholic school, and he came over to our house, guys, and the guy entertained my mother, my stepfather, and myself and my brother. You'd have thought he was Sammy Davis Jr. So good. And he was so charming that when he left for Portland, Oregon the next morning, I had my suitcase packed and I was with him. And I went out to the City of Roses. And you guys will love this. I was afraid to fly. And so the coach compromised and said, "Okay, we'll take the train." And we took the train across the country from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh to Chicago. And in Chicago, we got on a train called the City of Roses, and their
Mhm.
landing spot was Portland. And that's how I got out there. It took, like, I think we left on a Thursday morning and arrived in Portland on a Sunday morning. That's how long it took. But I saw every part of America you wanted to see. And
yeah, that's good. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say how beautiful it was.
Well, you just to piggyback a little bit on what you said about Wilt having to go to Kansas, you go to Portland. Herb Adderley wound up going to Michigan State,
Correct.
another great player out of the city of brotherly love. And it's kind of interesting that these players, of course, we would be talking to Wally Jones, who was another Philadelphia kid who wound up staying there, ironically, and going to Villanova. But
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, most of the kids that grew up in Philadelphia wind up going away to play collegiate ball.
Yes. Wally and Hubie White
Yes.
broke that chain that it was going on, but it was broken because of another African American that had an interest in Philadelphia basketball, and his name was George Raveling.
Yes.
And so George was the guy, and I think Wally can verify, who was the guy who recruited Wally and Hubie to Villanova, and that just broke down everything. And but I think Penn, they got John Weidman, and I'm trying to think. I think St. Joe's got John Tiller, and of course Temple had broken those chains a long time ago with Hal Lear, Jay Norman, and Guy Rogers.
Right.
The schools and LaSalle did with Al Lewis, and Jackie Moore was there briefly during the Tom Gola years. So they did break it down in Philly, but I don't know. I'd have to talk to all the guys to find out how welcome they felt on those campuses. Because as you know, I mean, being a Philadelphian, we were not rooted for. We were not part of the topography. And then Philadelphia, in my opinion, is a Catholic town.
Yeah.
Being a Catholic town, all of the Catholic school kids filtered into those universities.
No question about that. Listen, after Portland, you go into the NBA. 1961, you wound up with the Detroit Pistons. You spent there from 61 to 67. You also went and played for the Baltimore Bullets at the time, 67 to 70, and ended your career in the ABA with the Virginia Squires. So let's talk a little bit about each one of those situations. And first of all, the transition when you left the NBA, Baltimore, wound up going to Virginia. What was the biggest adjustment you had to make going from the type of style of play in the NBA to the ABA?
Well, the biggest thing I had to adapt to and adjust to was the style. Because now we had 3-on-2 fast breaks in the NBA. I like to talk about it. I talk about it extensively in my book. And guys it would be basic fundamental basketball. I go to the ABA with this red, white, and blue ball and this 3-point line, and I see guys running on fast breaks to the corner for the 3-point shot. And I see guys pulling up on fast breaks and taking a 3-point shot. And they also had very, very, very good athletes. And these guys can play. They could play. And they were athletic, and they dunked the ball, and it was showtime. And this is before, if memory serves, the Magic Johnson showtime.
Right.
Showtime in the ABA in these smaller cities, these non-elite American cities. And these guys played their hearts out. And I loved that league for 2 years. I'm playing Dan Issel and Goose Ligon and Cincy Powell. It was just a great bunch of players, a great group of players that played the game so hard and so well that they eventually acquired great players. Their big thing was to get Kareem, but that didn't happen. They wanted to get Wilt. That didn't happen. And then when they got Wilt, they went to court, and the NBA did not allow Wilt to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the reasons I believe, and Charlie, you may too, that Wilt never became a household name.
Right.
Wilt never became a household name because the NBA saw to that. And I wonder if his jump to the ABA had something to do with that. Because remember, when Wilt jumps to the ABA, he wasn't allowed to play, but he coached.
Okay.
All of a sudden, Bill Russell, who I love, Bill Russell becomes the flag bearer for the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Because the NBA was made up of great big men. They had all the great big men.
Sure.
I always felt that Wilt got the short end of the stick. Oscar Robertson got the short end of the stick somewhat. But Wilt, Elgin, Oscar, and the fourth guy, Wilt, Elgin, Oscar, and Baylor.
Elgin.
Those guys built that league because the NBA was a spectator league. It was not a television league.
Right.
We went to the games, Charlie, as you know, we went to Convention Hall to see the players, and we were kids. And we stood around and talked about these guys at Convention Hall and what great players they were. Well, that was a good time, but you had to have the attractions.
Sure.
Because we weren't put in everybody's living room. And I think that's what changed the sport. But I think Oscar Robertson, Wilt, Elgin, Russ, they changed it because they made us household names.
But talking about your ABA teammates in Virginia, your first year, you played with George Gervin, you played with Charlie Scott, you played with Larry Brown, you played with Doug Moe, you played with Larry Brown. That was when you start thinking about those names. And then of course Dr. J. He played there. I don't know if I don't think you played with him.
Played with Charlie my first year.
Yeah, your first year.
Played with Charlie and Julius my second year.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie left the team early. Had not Charlie left the team early, we could have won. We could have been taking a shot at the championship. But Charlie was signed with Phoenix, so he got out of town. But the people were looking at the talent in the league. Plus, Joe Pogo Caldwell and Billy Cunningham came to the ABA. So the ABA became more than a spectator league. They got a little television juice, and people wanted to see the players play. So it was that period was so interesting. And that 10 years that the ABA spanned across the sports world. It was very interesting. And I remember you being part of all of that. I remember I came back to coach in Detroit.
Yes.
And you were my guy, And, I was like, this is my homeboy, So,
I was working in Detroit in sports broadcasting and really enjoyed it. And talking about your time in Detroit as a coach, 72 to 76, and of course the big year for you was the year you were named the coach of the year in the NBA. That was 1974, a year that your team won 52 games, went 52-30, and played Milwaukee in the playoffs. Chicago Bulls in the playoffs, and went 7 games, lost in Game 7 of the first round of the playoffs. But what a year it was for you and some of the players you had on that team. Talk about, you had Bob Lanier, you had let's see who else was on that team. Dave Bing was on the team. Yes, another kid from around the area. He's from the DC area,
right?
You had Dave Bing, you had Bob Lanier, who just passed away not too long ago. Who else was part of that squad?
Well, we had Curtis, John Adams, Ford, George Trapp.
Chris Ford was there, right?
Yeah, Chris Ford from Villanova. Yes,
Villanova. Yeah.
Stu Lance was there. We had traded. They had traded Jimmy Walker for Stu Lance. And so Stu Lance was there. In fact, Stu Lance was why we gave Chicago such a good tussle. He played extraordinarily well. Until Clifford Ray woke up and played like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and killed us. You remember that? He had
Yeah.
points and 19 rebounds, and I'm still trying to figure that out. And I talk about it in my book. I was like, I couldn't believe this guy. He never played like that again, and he hadn't played like that before. But that game was one of those things you just feel everything. And I tell people he looked like he was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We couldn't come up with anything to stop him.
And then they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks, who
Correct.
had Oscar, they had Bobby Dandridge,
Yep.
they had Kareem.
Yep.
In the next round, they lost 4 straight to them in that next round.
Yeah. We took everything out of them. I mean, Sloan and Van Leer and Butterbean and Chet Walker and as I said, Clifford Ray. They were quite an outfit. They were quite, but I believe their exhaustion from playing us in the type of style because we smothered just like they did.
Right.
And they were not comfortable, and they managed to get out of town with their hats by 1 point. So
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah. One of the things that's kind of significant in your rise to be the head coach of the Detroit Pistons is you were an assistant under Earl Lloyd. Earl Lloyd, many people may not remember, played his collegiate ball at West Virginia State, was the first African-American to play in the NBA, and then became the head coach of the Pistons. You were an assistant under him. What did you learn from Earl?
I was assistant for 7 games. I retired, left the Virginia Squires, came back with Earl, and I was his assistant. And I remember we lost the game to Houston, and we flew out to Portland. And Earl said that, I'm in trouble here. And I go, what are you talking about? He didn't unpack his bags. I said, Earl, what are you talking about? And Earl said, I think I'm in trouble. And so I said, well, let's just go ahead with our plan. And if they tell us to wrap it up, wrap it up. And Earl and I had made some decisions, but we had talked deeply into the night about the team and what we wanted to do. And we were summoned to the general manager's suite. And we go in, we sit down. The general manager says, Earl, we've made a decision. Mr. Zollner and I made a decision. And Mr. Zollner decides that he's going to make a change in the coaching department. And man, my heart broke because I just got here. I've been here as assistant coach, and I'm out already. Mr. Coyle turned to me and said, Ray, you're the coach. And you could have bought me for 2 cents. I mean, I was like, how could this be? This is Earl. This is my guy. This is my mentor, my big brother, But Earl and I decided between us, and Earl impressed upon me the importance of taking the job. And we talked far into the night about what he wanted me to do and how we would live up to our promise. And one of the things that we talked about was players, because you win in the NBA with players, and we didn't have enough good players. And yes, we had Bob, and we had Bob Lanier, literally almost a 2-man team.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to look at the team and look at where we could fill in gaps. And so Earl had me go over personnel in the league, and 2 names I had on the list that I had seen was Johnny Mengelt,
Right,
Kansas City, and Don Adams, who was playing with the Atlanta Hawks. And
okay.
Mr. Coyle sat in on the meetings, and he said, I'll do everything I can to get those guys for you. And Mr. Coyle, the general manager, went out and got those first 2 players. And as you know, Charlie, because you were there, we wound up winning 20 of our last 30 games.
Yeah.
And we instead of being out of the playoffs, we just missed the playoffs, I think, by a game and a half or 2
Sure.
games.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go back to the table, and I said, Earl, we need one more thing, one ingredient, and we need another player to come off our bench, and it's George Trapp, instant lead, because we needed that offense, because neither Curtis or Don Adams were scorers. They weren't shooters, they were good players. And that changed all of the scenery for us with George, because now George gave us, I remember we were in Portland and he won a last second game with like a 20, 25-foot jump shot.
Mm-hmm.
That is it. We are on our way. And I think at that time we were like 12 and 11 or something, and we won. We went to 36 and 19.
Right.
And
Right.
I'll never forget that. But being in Detroit for me was a blessing because that's where I grew up in the NBA.
Right.
I came to Detroit at 22 years of age and a rookie. I didn't, and in fact, the rookie that came with me just made his transition, Johnny Egan.
Okay.
I
Yes.
was the number one pick. Johnny Egan was the second pick from Providence.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny just passed, God rest his soul. But we played with guys coming to Detroit with Dickie McGuire and Earl Lloyd being in charge. They were rock solid guys. I mean, they were just they taught us how to play the professional game. And so Earl Lloyd had immense influence on me. And I played 11 years of professional basketball
Right.
because of Earl Lloyd.
Well, that's great. When you look at today's game and the difference from not only when you played, but when you coached, we know that it's not. Yeah, it's a shooter's game today. Everybody, like you were talking about the ABA. Everybody was pulling up, taking the 3-point shot way back when in the '70s, when you were with Virginia. But that's what's happening today. The play inside is not the way it used to be.
That's correct.
Do you like today's game?
I don't. I think as an athlete, it doesn't come down to whether I like it or not. It's here. It's the way the game is played. In some ways, I can be critical of it, but in a lot of ways, I can be complimentary because today's game is predominantly played by African American kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I would be very much in support of today's game. I enjoy it. I enjoy playoffs, but there are instances that I don't enjoy. But the kids I love because they play so hard. That's a coach's dream, is to have 12 guys that are just going to go out there and play as hard as they can play every night. That occurs in today's NBA. It isn't as fashionable as it was with Magic Johnson throwing the ball into Kareem, or Dave Bing throwing the ball into Bob Lanier, or Oscar Robertson throwing the ball into Kareem again, or Willis Reed and Walt Frazier. I'm talking about tandems because in the NBA, the game is played from the inside out.
Correct.
Today's game is outside in.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have that same flow or that same make sense quality of it to me. I mean, you got a guy 7 feet today, he's out setting screens at the
and
top.
shooting threes.
Threes. I'm going, what happened to this game that I love? But that's the game. That's the game we get today. It's a bit European. So we've adapted things from Europe and China that guys do on the court today. And you say, why do they do that? Because so many players now go and play overseas.
They do.
They bring that back, and the Europeans. So it's a different game, but it's one that obviously can be enjoyed. And I think that is because this game is made for television.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie, being that's your line of work.
Yes.
You know how much more, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts because you know how much more interesting the game is today than in our days when we were trying to get open to shoot 15-foot jump shots and layups and drives to the hoop and hook shots and all of that. Now
you go back to the college day when Dean Smith was the four corners and they were holding the ball and the score was 15-12. I mean, people would go to sleep on that today.
With a clock. That was that's why they came in with the
shot clock.
24 seconds in the pros, 35 seconds in college. So the shot clocks were instituted into the game to try to make the game more interesting. But the game they played today is very interesting because I can sit and watch it with my wife. And one thing she gets is a dunk. She loves Steph Curry. The women love Steph Curry because he makes the game so simple.
Right.
He makes it down. This was the first year I saw him play a little bit more like Tiny Archibald.
Okay.
And Tiny was just one of the greatest players I've ever seen because he could drive the ball. He was smart enough to drive the ball to the basket in tough situations. And he could do that with the best of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Steph Curry playing that way, scoring 2-pointers, making 15-foot jump shots, making floaters. So the game, I think it'll change somewhat to where people will go more for 2-point shots, but it is a game made for television, and so many people enjoy it, and they make so much money.
Oh, yes.
Money. I just saw the NBA the other day arbitrarily give the ex-ABA players, 112 of them, $25 million.
Right.
That's such a grand gesture to me. Yeah. Some people don't like it. They think and it is overdue. There's no doubt about it. But what I like about the NBA is at least they'll sit down at the table and talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what we should, in my opinion, we should be doing in America, sitting down talking to each other so that we can come to a satisfactory compromise that helps all people.
Right.
So that's what it's all about. And I like the NBA taking that tact. I like the NBA having Charlie today. You know, when I came in, there was 3 black coaches, me, Al Attles, and Lenny Wilkins.
Right.
Eventually. Well, today there's 15 American coaches out of 30 teams. So the NBA, in my opinion, has moved the bar and worked at diversity and bringing people in that deserve to be in the league and have the opportunity to show their wares. That truly is a picture, in my opinion, of America.
Right, right.
And I congratulate them in my book for that.
Good. Wally, are you still there? Wally Jones?
Yes, I am.
Look.
Yes, I am, Charlie.
I hear you. And you played for Ray Scott, your home. He coached you for a year or maybe a game. You weren't in Detroit very long, but you did.
Yeah, a game.
You did have a chance to play for him and be in practice with Ray Scott. What your impressions of him from a coaching perspective?
Well, he knew the X's and O's, and we go back way back before even basketball. In the Detroit Pistons, we played in the Baker League together.
Sure.
One of the other things is that I was raised watching Ray Scott at West Philadelphia High School. One of the things for historians, we talk about Earl Lloyd. He was the one that drafted me to Detroit before I was traded to Baltimore Bullets.
Right.
Also, Charlie, we go back. We went to Villanova together.
Yes.
So a lot of history there. Even when I got injured, Ray Scott, Neal allowed me to stay with him until I healed. This is a true story. I mean, this is a gentleman that allowed me to stay with him while I was healing, while I was really healing from my injury in the first game with Detroit Pistons. But John Raymond, when we talk about basketball in Philadelphia, you're talking about knowledge, people that really are aware how to play the game. But I looked at him after seeing Wilt all those years coming to our high school games. It was so fortunate to have players like Ray Scott in Philadelphia, because as young players like Walt Hazzard and I, we would see Ray Scott. We would see guys like Wilt Chamberlain, Guy Rogers, Hal Lear, Tom Gola. So we were around some of the greatest basketball players that ever played out of Philadelphia. It gave me an upper hand because as a young high school player, we would be at the New York versus Philadelphia games and observe some of the greatest ball players from high school, college, and pro. But I have to say something that's very important in my life was that I was out of basketball after going to the ABA. I did experience that. As John Raymond knows, I had a chance to go to Utah, and it was a great experience. The type of game that they played, wide open, the 3-point shot, the red, white, and blue ball was very creative. And what they're doing now is the same thing we did in 1975. But I owe a lot to John Raymond because he brought me back to the NBA. I was out of the NBA for that 1 year and brought me back in. Unfortunately, I was injured, but it gave me an open door to go back to the Philadelphia 76ers in 1976. So it was a great opportunity, and I owe a lot to Ray Scott.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that's great. Just some of the things that you touched on, Wally, is so important. But when you look at today, and I just want to ask, I'm going to put Ray on the spot a little bit because there's always been a debate about who was the greatest center, who was the greatest this, who's the greatest that. In your opinion, who would you say it was the greatest center in the game of basketball in your career? What you've seen?
Well, I mean, Wally played with one of the greatest. Wally, you played with Kareem. Did you play at Milwaukee team with Kareem? And you got to play on the Philadelphia team with Wilt. I think it's better that you answer that question. I was against. They were all great to me, Russ. It was just which one of them was blocking my shot. But you were with this.
Well, the game of basketball, as we talked about earlier, has evolved. Today's game, the Philly connection has been there. And we want to say again, congratulations, not only for your book, Ray, but also being inducted into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame back in 2017. What does that mean to you?
Everything, because I am absolutely nothing without Philadelphia basketball. Having that opportunity to grow up, and my dad died when I was 8 years old, and I went across the street to the Western Community House and learned to play basketball. I attribute that time, that period, a lot with my survival. So Philadelphia was everything to me, and to be in the Philadelphia Basketball Hall of Fame with Wally and Has and Dip, Jeannie Banks. I mean, just great guys, great players, along with Philadelphia Phillies, Philadelphia Eagles. Charlie, it was a dream come true.
So
I like to piggyback. I like to piggyback off of that, Charlie.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you, but I like to piggyback because John Raymond, when we talk about the great centers of Philadelphia, the big men, it was so important to us in basketball to have the man behind you. And I was fortunate to play with Walt Bellamy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, Moses Malone, Darryl Dawkins. So I'm naming you some of the greatest centers that played in the game. And it gave me an opportunity to be more aggressive on the outside. But you're talking about great centers. I was so fortunate with all that. I even played with Bob Lanier that one game. I got to mention his name. God bless his soul. And the opportunity to come to Detroit and to play with a fellow like him was also a pleasure. But I was there when Ray was inducted into the Philadelphia Hall of Fame. And it was an honor for me to see somebody be recognized as one of the greatest centers out of Philadelphia.
Well, that's great. You mentioned something, Wally, about going up and watching the Guy Rogers and those guys play. Moreland Recreation Center. That's where I grew up at Raymond Rosen Projects, right at 23rd and Diamond. And of course, Raymond Rosen was at 25th and Diamond, which was 2 blocks away. So I spent a lot of time in the summer up there watching those summer leagues and Wilt coming up in his Volkswagen, driving up, sitting in the back seat because he was so tall. Nobody believed he drove a Volkswagen up there. But just to watch, I thought Guy Rogers, this was me personally, because I didn't know a lot of the guys, but just watching Guy, I thought he was one of the greatest guards I've ever seen. So, I mean, and I was young. I didn't know a whole lot about some of these guys, but the Summer League, which is now the Gathers Recreation Center, that's what they call it now after Hank Gathers. But and I'm sure, Wally, you spent some time up there also.
Yeah, I was there last year doing the Legends of the City of Brotherly Love team up to Silence the Violence. So I've been fortunate to be able to go to the places where we played, like Moreland, Haddington, Marion Anderson. I passed Christian Street Y today, Chink. I
Oh
mean,
my!
John Raymond. I passed Christian Street Y with my best friend, Coach Ken Hamilton, who's the winningest coach in Philadelphia history at Ben Franklin. And we were just reminiscing about all the different rec centers that we played in.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm very proud to be back in Philadelphia, because we're doing a clinic this weekend at 37th and Mount Vernon, and an opportunity to do a Silence of Violence clinic with some of the great legends of Philadelphia.
That's great. I want to bring in Coach Hatcher right now. You know, we haven't heard from him since we started, and I'm sure he wants to add something. We've got a lot of stuff covered here. You know, this conversation. I know we've got like 45 minutes of this show, but we could go for a whole week.
Hey, Charlie, this is family.
Yeah.
Everything that I'm hearing and everything we're talking about, I'm right within the conversation, just thinking here with Max. This is family. To have Ray and you, and of course Wally, the wonder, who's a part of the family. It's just like sitting there watching. We're in the restaurant.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like right now, and I'm just so happy to be a part of all you guys' lives, and that is a great thing for me, because this trifactor that's on right now is probably the most informational oratory situation that any young man can be right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ray, not only one of the greats of the greats and the first black to be the most valuable player, but most valuable head coach in the NBA. He also is an orator and touched so many people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Flip side of with Wally, oh man, what you can say about it? He's a typical Philly in his heart and in his soul, and it exuberates to everybody that comes a part of his life, or if you're fortunate enough to let him into your life. Mm-hmm. And also is everything on here, Charlie, is right there. You know, you are probably the most underappreciated Hall of Fame sports announcer in the nation. Not only are you a Hall of Famer in every, I would say, situational critique in basketball or football, is that you have helped pave the way for so many great guys that's in the sports world right now behind it. And I have to go no further than James Brown, now one of the leading sports commentators and content providers in the country and in the world, Emmy Awards. So, you know, me sitting here talking with my friends is just like sitting there talking, you know, with the family. Right. So Ray, I remember, you know, he helped me and Wally turn an NBA ragtag all-star track into something that came so impactful that we had to start off with some of the top great of the greats as of right now, with Magic and my stepson Dominic and so many. You know, Ray came up and turned our summer league game NBA games, Wally, NBA summer tour, into a legitimized tour that brought the cream de la cream to us. And we were so appreciative and happy for that. So, you know, it's what they normally think of as being a part of their life. They touch so many lives as you do too, Charlie. So, hey, man, don't even nobody think, the listeners and the people on the tube now getting news that they can use. And that's all I care about. We're a platform to bring Raymond. We're a platform to bring Wally to those who need to know the history of the game so they can appreciate to hear an orator like Ray Scott. So, hey, I'm happy as a bony out, man.
Well, I'll let you wrap it up, Coach. This is your show.
Oh, listen, man. Thank you so much. for letting us be a part of this day of sports. And I hope you appreciate the historical and the linguistical value of it, pictorial value. Ray's book is something that I think everyone needs to go to who loves NBA basketball. The CIAA sportsbook.com talks about the great heroes in the African American HBCU historical black colleges. So these things we want to promote. Ray is a must read. It's on Amazon. I think, Ray, you can go over to a little picture on that if you can.
I actually don't. I had the book right here, but Jennifer moved it, so my arms are not quite as long as me.
Well, listen, we will bring it back up and pitch it along with the CIAA sportsbook.com, Ray. We'll have that promo pack that you got from Amazon right there with us in the upcoming show. So
if I may, Coach, I would like for Charlie and Wally, you got your book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No,
Coach,
I haven't gotten the book yet. I haven't.
Oh, well, then send me your address, and
Mm-hmm.
Charlie, send me your address. And Coach, I think you got yours.
No, I didn't. Not yet. Max is right here. We'll send it to you, Ray.
Send me those addresses, and I'll get the book.
Yeah, just text it to her.
Wonderful.
Okay. Now,
Thank you very much.
I want all of us to be a part of it. Charlie, you go ahead and knock it on off. We got to get out of here, man.
Hey, it's been my pleasure to be around this greatness, the legends. Coach Hatcher, always a pleasure allowing me to be a part of your show. And thank you to my college roommate and teammate and classmate, Wally Jones, and of course, John Raymond Scott, for all you have done for the game of basketball, both as a player, as a coach, and what you continue to do. And for all of us here, Charlie Neal saying so long.